Folks, it's also a great pleasure to introduce my next speaker, Dr. Alan McManus. Now, Dr. Alan McManus is the chairman of the Freedom Alliance, and he will tell you exactly what that is all about. And he's got a few choice words to say as well about this. He is an academic, and he tells me he's also an actor as well. Dr. Alan.
The speaker only goes this way. That's okay.
Hello everyone. The speaker goes this way, and I intend not to shout. Hopefully you can hear me. If you want to come this side and curry in, because as Max Bygrave said, I want to tell you a story. Come on in. Curry in, folks, curry in. Can you hear me at the back? You can, thank you, sir. Come right in, come right in. Let people in. Come on. Okay. My father spoke soldier's German, and so in his version, what they said at the beginning was this: "Ist der eine Dolmetscher here?" And then a bookish British soldier would be pushed through the ranks by the squaddies to interpret what the Nazi guards had said. 3 years later, because that was the extent of my father's sojourn in a prisoner of war camp, when they asked the same question, nobody answered because everyone spoke German by then. So that was my father's side. On my mother's side, mein Urgroßvater kam aus Hanover in 1861. And why, you would imagine, did he leave there to come to the east end of London under Bismarck, decades before even the Kaiser? Well, his name might give you a clue. It can be spelt Aleph, Resh, Nun, Sin. And I didn't understand the significance of that. It's not spelt that way in German. When I was asked at my alma mater, Scotland's oldest university, to become president of the Jewish Society, and I refused, saying, I'm Goy. In fact, I'm Roman Catholic. And they said, no, Alan, but you're the one that has been here the longest. So we want you to be the president. You have been on a kibbutz. You speak Hebrew, which was almost a complete lie because I never really got into my head. Keep thy foot from the tent of the wicked, and other phrases they were trying to teach me in Hebrew 1 and Hebrew 2. Although I can master Ani Rotsei Glida Echad, which if anyone in the crowd medaver ivrit, Ken, Lo, it means I want an ice cream. And that's a really useful phrase when you're living in the Levant. Why am I telling you all this? Because it may then come as a surprise when I say that the gentleman who invited me to speak here today to you is none other than Scotland's enemy, public enemy number one, Mr. Alistair McConaughey, who is a very nice gentleman, as you know, and who was a great help to me and to my candidate when I was his election agent in the recent by-election in Hillhead. Why has Alistair got a bit of a bad reputation? Now, it's not because of his rather colourful jacket, which he doesn't have on today, and it's not actually because of anything that he said. If you have ever seen the film The Winslow Boy, you will know, because of what Freddie says at the end, that it doesn't matter what you say to the press, because they'll write anything anyway. And that's what happened to Alistair. I have more degrees than sense, and my first degree is in ecclesiastical history and practical theology, and had that degree shop up the road. granted me an interview and not sacked me for standing up for the rights of disabled people and free speech 4 years ago, I would have been able to elaborate at an interview to them about that. So I am also a historian. And as I heard a very erudite gentleman with a lovely accent from over the water standing around here say to a colleague earlier on, history, and I'm paraphrasing Henry Ford, is not just one damn thing after another. Why? Because there is no authority to determine what happened when and what the relationship is with these things. What has this got to do with you and with me and with hate speech and with Alistair? Because I looked at the source document, at what Alistair had actually said. And in terms of historiography, in terms of the narratives of history, it's not exactly groundbreaking. If any of you have studied Scottish history in a Scottish university, especially if you're my age, you will have had the pleasure of being lectured at, usually by English professors who delight in telling you that Scotland is and always has been a complete myth. It is nothing more than a ragbag of disparate tribes and ethnicities and religions and shifting political alliances that more or less unsuccessfully, because the score's only 2-1 at the moment and it's half time, we're not very successful against our neighbours over the border. And this, I must admit, because, don't kill me, I'm a Scottish nationalist, personally, but my party isn't. This has always riled me, but as a historian, I need to admit the truth of it. And I need to say that if that's true of Scotland, it is also true of England. What's my long and rambling point? And I do thank you for your patience. History is a shifting conglomerate of narratives that contend and overlap and slip one into the other. It's not set in stone. History is argued over all the time by historians. In Latin languages, there is only one word for story and history: historia, storia, histoire. And what Alistair was doing was simply saying this story may not be completely true. That's hardly a groundbreaking thing to say, especially when you put it in context of another story which is hardly ever talked about, and I'm talking about the Soviet famine, which killed so many people. And there are no museums about that, and there's no days of commemoration about that. Alistair was demonised because, not, I think, because of his views on historical revisionism. And let's put revisionism into context. It's what historians do all the time, revise theories, and it's what academics do all the time. We revise theories, and if we're not doing that, we're not doing our job. It doesn't mean that you have to believe everything in the latest revision, because it's only temporary, but you should at least consider it if you're a real academic. Alistair was demonised because he's saying other things that are inconvenient to the establishment. Other speakers may talk, and you may consider yourselves, that there is a chilling effect on free speech from this hate crime legislation. But I want you to consider also the detrimental effect on freedom of academic endeavour. Because if we can't think freely, and I admit that a lot of academics are useless loafers, stupidly putting out books with one thought at a time, that's true. But every now and again, one of them, by coincidence, comes up with something that's actually useful. I am the chairman of Freedom Alliance, and our deputy leader a few weeks ago mentioned something about the use of hemp in repairing potholes. Now imagine if someone comes along and says, oh, you can't use hemp for potholes because hemp is cannabis and that's the war on drugs, and no, 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 and just say no, as Nancy Reagan said, quite wisely. Then that endeavour would be shut down completely because it's not ideologically convenient. And so if we go on in this way and we don't even consider ideas because we disagree with them or we think they might be dangerous, then we are missing out on the good ideas which may follow. There are only 3 reasons for new legislation. And the first one is because society's values have progressed to such an extent that something needs to be regulated, needs to be provided for in law, which has not been. So women's suffrage is such an example. Because when we men eventually, and it did take us a while, and the ladies had to remind us rather a lot, conceded that women are equal, then finally we decided that we had to give them the vote. So that was society's values progressing and the law progressed. And the second reason for new legislation is when you have a new situation. So for example, contract law is changing because of electronic signatures. And you'll know that because you're a businessman. And it has borrowed from the use of signatures on paper and has just expanded. So that's the second category. And the third category, I'll let you boo. One more minute. Okay, one more minute. The third category for new legislation is when the statute book is incoherent and the relationship with common law, with judge-made law, is no longer clear. This hate crime legislation fails all 3 heads of the rationale because there are no new values that it embodies. The snowflakes who imagine that it's good for them are wrong. Because without going into a huge controversial subject, demographics are changing. And what may be in place now is not going to be in place in the future. So if we give up our rights to our free speech to the state, then beware, because it could be your opinions next. There is no new technology, and this does not declutter the statute book. It makes it incoherent, it makes it confusing, and hundreds of police officers who are not able to do anything else are now scratching their head trying to work out if this is a hate crime. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you to Alistair for inviting me today. Let's repeal hate crime. Thank you, Dr. Alan McManus, for an excellent talk. Very, very educational. It's fantastic that we have got a mind like Dr. McManus on our side.